play Death of a Salesman by Arthur Miller focuses on the main character, Willie Loman. Willie is a traveling salesman who carries delusions of success for both himself and his sons. An important aspect of the play is the relationships between Willie and the other characters, particularly when considering how they see their lives and situations compared to how Willie sees them. In some senses, Willie seems to live in an alternate reality he has created in his own mind. This brings about the reoccurring question of Willie's sanity, which seems to be dwindling throughout the play, leading to his eventual suicide. Although as the audience, it is clear that Willie's death was a suicide, this may not have been clear to the characters within the play. This led us to the idea to create an investigation into Willie's death. We will present interrogations of various characters who knew Willie, as well as the police attempts to determine whether or not his death was in fact a suicide. One must go in to fetch a diamond out.
I just want to get settled down, Linda. Let me sit alone for a while.
I want you upstairs.
In a few minutes, Linda. I couldn't sleep right now. Go on, you look awful tired.
Not like an appointment at all. A diamond is rough and hard to touch.
Go on now, I'll be right up.
I think this is the only way, Willie.
Sure, it's the best thing.
Best thing.
The only way. Everything is gonna be, go on, kid, get to bed. You look so tired.
Come right up.
2 minutes. Isn't that a remarkable thing, Ben? He'll worship me for it.
It's dark there, but full of diamonds.
Can you imagine that magnificence with $20,000 in his pocket?
Willie, come up.
Yes, coming. It's very smart you realize that, don't you, sweetheart? Even Ben sees it. I gotta go, baby. Bye-bye. Imagine when the mail comes, he'll be ahead of Bernard again.
A perfect proposition all around.
Did you see how he cried to me? Oh, if I could kiss him, Ben.
Time, William, time.
Oh, Ben, I always knew one way or another we were gonna make it, Biff and I.
The boat. We'll be late.
Now, when you kick off, boy, I want a 70-yard boot and get right down the field under the ball. And when you hit low and hit hard, because it's important, boy. There's all kinds of important people in the stands, and the first thing you know, Ben, how do I?
Willie, you coming up?
Shh.
Willie? Willie, answer me, Willie? No!
Hello, everybody.
Hi guys, we're just here to ask you a couple of questions to get to the bottom of what happened.
Yeah, we're just making sure no foul play was involved.
So how did your conflicting relationship with Biff affect your relationship with your father?
Biff and I are quite different when it comes to a lot of things, especially in our relationships with our father. My dad had such high hopes for Biff, and it was really overwhelming. Sometimes I felt like I wasn't noticed at all. Dad was always praising Biff and telling him how perfect he was. Like, all I wanted was to be noticed. I decided to become my dad's vision of success, but nothing really mattered. I felt like I was always in competition with Biff. That's really no way to be living. I shouldn't feel like I'm competing with my brother for my father's attention. It made my relationship with my dad rocky, and it was unfair. I was just trying to be his vision of success, and it just meant nothing compared to Biff. That doesn't mean I didn't love Biff and my dad, but it takes a toll on a kid trying to live life in the shadow of your dad favoriting your brother.
What were your father and Biff arguing about before the crash?
He was telling my dad to just forget him like he always does. I mean, it was really nothing out of the ordinary. Biff just doesn't want that pressure my dad was putting on him to be this successful businessman. The only thing that was different was that Biff cried this time. I've never seen him cry like that in an argument with my dad. It was a little shocking, but I just figured Biff had finally had enough of my dad's pressure. But Biff just went upstairs after the argument. I didn't really think anything of it.
So I heard you were the one that heard your father's car speed off. Can you describe what happened?
I mean, I just did. He was fighting with Biff about his future, the usual. I overheard Biff telling my dad, like he always does, to just let him live his life and let him be a bum.
Look, if you don't answer any of my questions, You're going to jail. This is your chance to tell your side of the story.
I have been answering your questions. My family and I are doing everything we can to help. We just want to see this resolved, and we want to see it resolved just as much as you do.
Well, we were all out to dinner, and Biff and Willie were fighting all day about Biff's grades in math, and I was helping him out. When we sat down, I told Willie that Biff got his grades back and that he was failing. He started freaking out, yelling, and talking to himself. Next thing I know, he stormed off, and we didn't see him ever since.
Look, if you don't answer my questions, I won't have any choice but to take you to jail.
I didn't do anything to Willie. He's been worked up about losing his job and fighting with Biff. He's been imagining people, daydreaming all the time. He just didn't seem in the right state of mind in the nights leading up to that. He probably hurt himself.
Well, it seemed to give you a really hard time over to your success over his sons, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I was helping Biff out in math, just trying to get his grades up. But he was always mocking me for being more successful, but I would never do anything to hurt him.
So you're saying it never bothered you?
No, didn't bother me at all. I was trying to help Biff out with math. I would never do anything. None of us wanted this to happen.
You're not a suspect. We're simply just investigating here. Just help us understand what happened.
But I don't know what happened. Last time I spoke to him, he said he'd be right up to bed. I kept asking where he was, and he said, I'll be right up, Linda. But eventually he just kind of stopped answering. And the next thing I knew, I heard the car, and he drove away. I mean, there was fighting earlier in the night. Him and Biff kept getting into it about work again. Neither of them are really making much money, but they settled things. Once Willie realized Biff, actually liked him, he just kind of, everyone decided to go to bed and everything settled down. That's why I don't know how this could have possibly happened.
You seem to show some remorse for your husband's death. Why is that?
It's hard for me. I can't really get myself to cry. I mean, it just seems like he's on another trip. I keep expecting him to come home, you know what I mean? I just don't understand it. I made the last payment on the house the other day. No one's even going to be there.
Willie seemed to be having a lot of personal issues. What was your relationship with your husband like?
What do you mean? Our relationship was just fine. Willie was a great man. I not only loved him, I admired him. He traveled often for work, but he would always be glad to come home. I mean, he cared for me too. He always wanted to provide for me, for the boys. He made them respect me too. I mean, I know he was frustrated lately with the traveling for work. I really think Howard should have let him work in New York so he could be home more.
Mrs. Lohman, were you aware of your husband's infidelity? Were you trying to get revenge on your husband?
What do you mean? My husband was having an affair, officer. I had no idea. That can't be true. He worked so hard for his family. He would never betray us like that.
Well, unfortunately, according to your son Biff, it is true. And now the case against you is really strong. It's not a question of whether you're going to jail. It's a question of what you're going to jail for. This is your last chance to get the right information to the DA before he decides to press charges.
But I loved him so much. I would never do anything to hurt him. He was stressed out often lately, but I did everything I could to comfort him. I swear I didn't know about my husband's infidelity. I swear. Maybe that's why Biff had so much hostility towards him.
Where were you the night of the murder? We're looking for foul play.
I was at home. My son saw me there.
Do you remember the victim ever acting out of sorts?
Yeah, he was acting strange lately. I remember one night I could hear him talking to himself in the kitchen. I went over to see if everything was okay. He called me Ben. It's like he wasn't even talking to me. We were arguing more. He was getting touchy whenever I tried to help him. I knew something was off.
You were arguing more? That doesn't help your case.
I had no involvement, which is why I'm telling you that. Willie always had been a prideful man, easily insulted if you tried to help him. It just seemed that it was happening more, as he needed more help, but he was too scared to ask. Then when you offer to help him, he takes it as a personal insult. I tried to help in any way.
Is it true you loaned him money?
Yeah, it wasn't a problem, though. I wasn't bent out of shape about not getting it back. He was having a rough time. He didn't force me to give it to him. Always good to help a friend in need. Willie was troubled. It was just sad it had to end like this.
Look, you're not a suspect. We're simply just investigating here. Just help me and her understand what happened.
Okay, well, first we were talking the night before. Me and Happy just discussed a plan to get jobs so we could support Pop. The next morning I went to speak to Mr. Oliver. Things didn't go so well. At the same time, Pops went to go talk to his boss about changing his sales from New England to New York.
What are you afraid of? If you haven't done anything wrong, then you shouldn't have any problem answering my questions.
I'm not afraid, I'm upset. Anyways, Dad ended up getting fired. We were supposed to eat dinner together that night. I was real mad and went to go talk to Happy before Pop got there. We spoke of what happened with Mr. Oliver, and when Dad showed up I tried to tell him what I needed to say. Pop wasn't listening to what I had to say. Eventually I couldn't bring myself to tell him the truth. Pop suddenly left in a delirious state, and I just broke into frustration and left.
Okay, come on. I'm not asking you to sign anything. We're just talking, and you can stop anytime you want to. So, what did you say to him last?
Well, me and Hap walked into the house, and Mom was real angry with us. Pop said that we left him at dinner, and I guess we did. I said that we needed to talk to him, and I needed to talk to him for real this time. I needed to explain to him everything that I needed to say. That I can't keep a job or even want to, and I'm better off not burdening him by coming home constantly as a miserable failure. I wanted to tell him that I was leaving for good so he can get back to normal.
How did he react to it?
He became violent as always. I broke into tears trying to explain myself so that he would stop spiting me. Eventually he got my message. I ended the conversation by telling him I was leaving in the morning.
Did your father ever express any psychopath behavior that would have led to his decision?
He'd been talking to himself a lot, acting all delirious in conversation. Not whispers, but aloud to himself, almost as if he were in conversation with someone else who wasn't in the room.
You know, there's only one person that can help you right now, and that's you. I can listen, but you've got to do the talking. This thing's going to eat at you, and it's going to weigh you down for the rest of your life if you don't get it off your conscience. Things look pretty bad right now, and they are, but this is where we have to start from. You got to get this stuff out now so you can move forward. If you could talk to the victim right now, what would you want to say?
I honestly don't know. Maybe that he never knew himself, and that I'm sorry for letting him down.
I hear you were the one who saw your dad's car speed off before the accident. Could you describe what happened and what he was doing?
He was like this right before he took off. I got out of bed because Mom was arguing with him, and I wanted to see what was going on. And the next thing I knew, I heard the car drive off.
Your family have all cooperated and we let them go home. You're the only one left. Do you want to stay in jail?
No, I don't. Relax, I'm telling you the story already.
I'm tired of screwing around. If you don't answer my questions, you're going to be charged with obstruction.
I'm gonna answer everything you need.
Basically, the case against you is really strong. It's not a question of whether or not you're going to jail. It's a question of what you're going to jail for. This is your last chance to get the right information to the DA before he decides on the charges.
I'm getting it straight.
So, murder or suicide, what are your thoughts?
The dad was obviously a loony.
Yeah, I know. I mean, he wasn't in his right mind, and everything that we've looked at, all the evidence here, it points to a suicide, even though, I mean, that's a serious accusation. It's definitely accurate.
True. Just let them all go home.
Yeah.
Good work, Officer Hill.
You too, Officer Tatum.